So today in seminary, we went over a couple of things. Some of this was things that Jamie felt inspired that we should talk about. One of them is Oliver Granger, who Jamie saw Oliver Granger's grave when she went on a church history tour with our daughters.
Oliver Granger gets asked to stay behind and sell off the rest of the properties. One of the most beautiful sections in the Doctrine Covenants. President Packer has a talk on Oliver Granger.
There's a message in the seldom quoted Revelation given to the prophet Joseph Smith in 1838.
DNC 117, we're fulfilling prophecy today, by the way. Here's why.
Oh.
Again, I say unto you, I remember my servant Oliver Granger. Behold, verily I say unto him that his name shall be had in sacred remembrance from generation to generation, forever and ever, saith the Lord. Therefore let him contend earnestly for the redemption of the first presidency of my church, saith the Lord. And when he falls, he shall rise again, for his sacrifice shall be more sacred unto me than his increase.
Wow.
Right? And that's the promise to all of us. Our sacrifice is accepted of the Lord, even if we fail by all worldly accounts and measurements. And he's just a legacy that we stand on his shoulders as well.
You may have to squint your eyes to read it, but the unassuming stone reads Oliver Granger. And it looks like they miscalculated and were barely able to fit in the last letter of his name. So, who was Oliver Granger, and why should you care? Let's go back to President Packer.
Oliver Granger was a very ordinary man. He was mostly blind, having lost his sight by cold and exposure. The first presidency described him as a man of most strict integrity and moral virtue, and in fine, to be a man of God. When the saints were driven from Kirtland, Ohio, in a scene that would be repeated in Independence and Far West and Nauvoo, Oliver was left behind to sell their properties for what little he could. There was not much chance that he could succeed, and really he did not succeed.
Wait, what?
And really he did not succeed.
If he didn't succeed, what did he do that merits attention and sacred remembrance?
Nothing much, really. It was not so much what he did as what he was. The Lord said, "Let him contend earnestly for the redemption of the first presidency of my church, saith the Lord. And when he falls, he shall rise again. For his sacrifice shall be more sacred unto me than his increase, saith the Lord." The Lord did not expect Oliver to be perfect, perhaps not even to succeed.
One of his legacies, for example, is his daughter, Sarah Granger Kimball, who would be instrumental in organizing the Relief Society in Nauvoo. Although Oliver didn't live to see a fully established Zion, his willingness to help build it allowed the Lord to build him into a true Latter-day Saint.
I don't think it pleases the Lord when we worry because we think we never do enough, or that what we do is never good enough. The Lord did not say of Oliver, if he falls, but when he falls, he shall rise again. For his sacrifice shall be more sacred unto me than his increase, saith the Lord. Let no one underestimate the power of faith in the ordinary Latter-day Saint.
So, tender mercy that we got to run into Oliver Granger today. That's DNC 117.
That's the first part of the lesson that we gave today. The other part, though, that we did talk about, the lessons that Oliver learned. And I feel like it's a reoccurring theme, particularly in the early days of the church, is that things that may not have seemed like they were super successful were not really about the actual task that needed to get done. Same thing a little bit with Zion's Camp, and oftentimes with finances. There was a lot of things that the Lord let Joseph Smith try and do because he was really worried about finances at a couple of points. And it didn't work out the way that you might have expected. But there still was success in the context of saints being developed and growing and learning new things, and missionary work getting done. So very, very interesting reoccurring themes, I think, in the early church. So yeah, we didn't have much time to be able to go over all of this, but it
But
just
I
came down to,
do love the four themes from Oliver Granger's life.
yeah. So the sacrifice over success, again, success, it just depends on what we define success to be. Stewardship and responsibility, like taking the thing seriously, even when he wasn't finding temporal success, he never gave up. It never became like a, what's the point? He was faithful in his efforts and overcoming his personal challenges, like health, his blindness. Even though it was a sacrifice, he wanted to be with the saints, but instead he was asked to be a trusted member of the community where he was, and these things being remembered. Again, like it might have seemed like small things that didn't work out the way that he would have hoped or we would have hoped, but that wasn't what it was about. And he is memorialized in the Doctrine and Covenants for the great effort and sacrifices that he made. And we talk about him every time we read section 117. The next part of the lesson was talking about tithing. And there are a lot of connections between these two. Tithing, there's a lot of things about tithing where it might not seem like it's a super huge thing. Our part might seem very small, or it may seem like our money is just going, or like the church has plenty of money and the Lord has plenty of money, so why do we even need to pay it? And it's really not about any of those things. It's not about measuring the success in that way. So the law of tithing, we learned about in Doctrine and Covenants 119 and 120. Jay, do you want to read this?
Verily,
Yeah.
thus saith the Lord, I require all their surplus property to put into the hands of the bishop of my church in Zion, for the building of mine house, and for the laying of the foundation of Zion, and for the priesthood, and for the debts of the presidency in my church. And this shall be the beginning of the tithing of my people. And after that, those who have thus been tithed shall pay 1/10 of all their interest annually. And this shall be a standing law unto them forever. For my holy priesthood, saith the Lord.
And it is a standing law. We still have it exactly the same today. And the language of it is important. It's 1/10 of our increase, or 1/10 of their interest annually, um, should be provided or given, paid to the church. And at this time, it was specifically about building a temple. So the Lord had commanded Joseph Smith and the saints to build the temple. And Joseph Smith couldn't figure out how that was going to be done financially, so he inquired of the Lord, and that's where this section comes from. And so the Lord is allowing the saints to be active participants in the actual financial establishment of the temple and the building of the temple. And so it just made it more theirs when it came time to actually dedicate and be in the Lord's house. They were an active part of building up the temple. And again, now today, those things are still true. We're still building temples with tithing. The tithing goes into the physical establishment of the kingdom of God. But also the tithing is a law of faith that we get to be active participants in.
Yeah, keep going to some of those common concerns that we had from the discussion board.
Yeah, so some of these are I don't earn much money. Do I still pay tithing? We had the same sort of thing with I remember living in the dorms and we did fast offerings. And the way fast offering works is the money that you save by fasting, you pay to a fund in the church that's used to then help those who don't have enough to eat. but we were all on meal plans. So we're like, how are we supposed to give our money that we saved by not eating to the fund? And there was no way to do it. And again, if you have zero money, 10% of zero is zero. So paying $0 is a full tithe. But again, it's more about the purpose of heart. Like if it's, oh, I'm so glad I'm not making any money. That way I don't have to pay the church. Versus, whatever I do earn, I will set aside 10% to the Lord, regardless of what happens in the future. And this is a commitment that I make, right? Like those are two very different attitudes with the same action as far as like paying $0. So we're not asked to give everything or to give what we don't have. But we are asked to have a willing heart and to be humble and to be willing to participate. But we're asked if we want to pay to other charitable causes, that we're invited to do that if we have the funds. But tithing is not about charity. There might be ways that, like doing our taxes, it is considered donating to a charitable cause, and there might be tax benefits. But again, even if those didn't exist, the notion or the amount of tithing wouldn't be changed in the law. The law is not going away. The law is about our faith and our participation and our covenants that we've made with the Lord. So yes, it's great to participate in other charitable contributions, but tithing is something different and separate and should be considered as such.
Well, and I kind of loved during our lesson because in the opening we talked a little bit about AI and having integrity and honesty, and that kind of tied back into Oliver Granger, and it tied into this tithing lesson of having integrity with tithing and being an honest tithe payer and having and that faith connected with the faith that Garth is talking about, getting a testimony of it. Like Jesus doesn't need our money. He can figure it out on his own. This is a like participatory for us experience. Do you want to just in the last minute tell about AI and how building your testimony versus just using AI to do it for you?
Yeah, I think this all plays into the same sorts of things. Even those last two questions, right? Can I afford to pay tithing when I have other financial needs? Like we have lots of examples in the scriptures of like Elijah and the widow with the oil. She made sure that even when she didn't have enough for her and her son, that she made her sacrifice not to the prophet but to the Lord first. And because of that, she was blessed to have her needs met. And we should have the same sort of attitude as we go into it. And as far as things like AI, the goal of, we're talking in the context of like our homework assignments or the participation in our class. If the students just use AI to answer our questions, they're not really being an active participant in the class. We're just finding out about what AI thinks the answer should be to these questions. And it probably does give good answers. The quality of some of these AIs are great, but it kind of defeats the purpose. We're not trying to get through these things. The Lord doesn't ask us to do these things because he needs them done as much as he needs us, or even better to say is we need the experience in doing them. So paying tithing isn't about the money that the Lord needs from us. It's about us making the sacrifice and the lessons and the blessings that we earn. Even the word earning blessing isn't even the word is the right way of saying we don't deserve the 90% even that we have. We are blessed and should see it that way with whatever we're given. The end.
Amen.
Just ending it there. All right.
Yeah, we're all busy. We gotta like get back into the real world and really do the things we been asked to do.
Okay. Bye.